Here on Outside the Box Reviews, we answer the hard questions when it comes to collecting. Is the figure worth buying? How's the articulation? What's the paint like? Where's the bourbon? Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Mezco Cinema of Fear Series 1 Freddy Krueger figure from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Arguably the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie of the bunch, and Mezco gave us a very non-iconic version of Freddy starting off here. And I guess we have to remember that Mezco was following in the footsteps of two other companies. Both McFarlane and NECA had the Freddy Krueger likeness rights before Mezco got them, so it almost makes sense that they would hit a less iconic version of Freddy just so they could do something that the other two guys hadn't already done. But let's take a closer look at Freddy here. And Fred here comes with one of the greatest accessories ever to come with a horror figure, in my opinion. He comes with his skeleton self from the end of the movie, and how cool is this? An articulated, full-sized Freddy Krueger skeleton. It's so cool looking. The detail on here is great. The paint gives it that nice, dead, worn look. Lots of brown shading on there. I supplied my own cobwebs from sitting up on the shelf for so long, so that's even cooler. He's got his glove here, which looks really brutal and sinister. It's all that same gray scale, except for the silvery blades on it with some rust on them. Comes with a little display stand, which is a little hard to get him to stand on, and very dusty in my case, but very, very cool. I love this thing. For articulation, it has a ball joint at the head. You could swivel at the top of each shoulder, so it's pretty limited, but it is there. Nothing in the hands. You have a swivel cut in the middle of his spine here, and then a cut joint on the top of both legs. So really, you get him on this display stand, and you have to kind of arrange him so he'll balance. The display stand does have two pegs and he has holes in the bottom of each foot, but it can get a little hard to get him to stand correctly on it just because of balancing issues. As you can see, he kind of wants to lean forward, which is why I kind of had him leaning back to kind of counterbalance it and get him to stand properly. And now he's probably not going to do it either way. But still, a really, really cool accessory. Mezco in the Cinema of Fear line, especially at the beginning, gave us some great, big, cool accessories. And as I said, this is one of my absolute favorites. Now, Freddy's other two accessories I think count in the terms of being just part of the sculpt, so we'll get to them as we go along. But here we have his head, which looks pretty good. It's a decent likeness to part 3. The neck gets a little weird looking. It's not quite as good, but the top of the head with the big gashes in it, his bright blue eyes and his little smirking expression, I think it really works, especially for an older Freddy Krueger head sculpt. It definitely nails his likeness well enough to be effective. And this can pop off. And we could plug in the other head sculpt it comes with. It's a much more sinister look with the bared teeth. Once again, a very cool head. The teeth probably could be a little more weathered, even though they are very dirty and dark. I think a little more yellow on them would have been kind of cool, but very, very neat looking. Come down here, we have the rest of his tux. We have his sweater colors reflected in his bow tie. This is his shirt with some decent detailing and blood splatter all over it. The blood splatter leaves a little to be desired. It's a little just bright red and not very blood looking. Little handkerchief in there. This jacket is a soft rubber, but it's fairly connected to his body, so there's not a whole lot of movement you get with it. The sleeves are hard sculpted, and they really kind of come off at weird angles just because this isn't that great of an articulated figure. The glove's really brutal looking. It's very similar to one on the skeleton, but the main glove part's cool, and then the blades are these short little stumpy blades with a little blood on them. But the stumpiness of them kind of makes them look more brutal. They're very straight. There's no real curve to them. It looks really sinister, and even though it's not movie accurate, I think it's a cool look. His other just burnt, ungloved hand kind of has this beckoning motion going on to it. I'm not a big fan of this hand, so I like to replace it with Freddy's other accessory. It's a bloody version of that hand holding on to Kristen's mother's head. And not a bad sculpt on this. It looks enough like the actress. I just have her hair and her face a little heavy on the makeup, but still cool. I like the bloody stump coming off the bottom. And a lot of people complain we don't get a lot of victim pieces, and I think this is a good way to do it. Just the severed head. Some of the Mezco Jasons came with severed heads as well, and I think it's about as much victim as I want with my slasher. But pretty cool looking. Coming down here on the figure, we just have his pants, nothing too special, and then his dress shoes. This one has some blood on it. So continuing over from Leatherface, we still have somebody with some blood on their shoe. It's a running theme apparently this week so far. For articulation, we have a ball joint at the base of the neck, which gives a fairly good range. Pin socket shoulders, but you don't get a whole lot of range. It may actually just be ball joint shoulders, but they could rotate forward and back and then go in and out just a little bit. Not a whole lot of range of motion there. I can't even tell, like I said, if they're hinge or if they're actually a ball joint. Could bend at the elbow, which he has a decent range there. The gloved hand pretty much could just swivel. It moves forward and back a little bit, but the ungloved hand has a nice hinge joint on it, so you can go up and down as well as swivel. So you got a great range there. You have a swivel at the waist. And because this is Cinema of Fear Series 1, we have a V-cut at the crotch and a bend at the knee. And as I've mentioned before, these joints are pretty much useless because he can't stand in any position other than his neutral one. So even though back in the day I'd hear a lot of people saying that they wish Mezco had kept the leg articulation, it didn't do anything for these figures. So this was the first Freddy Krueger action figure I ever bought. So for the longest time, my collection did not have the iconic sweatered Freddy, but I had the tuxedo Freddy, and it's kind of a weird thing to have. I eventually did get around to picking up the Series 2 Mezco Freddy in the sweater, which was part 1, and I've already reviewed that figure in a Figure Wars with the NECA figure of the same version. But this, especially now in retrospect, having NECA put out all their different versions of Freddy, but mostly just him in the sweater and mostly just the iconic Freddy. Some go a little crazier than others, but I'm really happy to have this version now. It really actually elevates my enjoyment of this figure, looking back and having so many other ones. First of all, the skeleton accessory is top-notch. I have some gripes with the way it stands, but you know what? It's an accessory. I mean, it could be a figure all on its own. I could see a company releasing that, maybe a little better articulated, but just as its own piece. And it's a phenomenal accessory and a great scene builder. And then Freddy himself. Yeah, he doesn't have great articulation, but what figure did at that point in time? It was a rarity. He has 2 head sculpts. He has 2 left hands. The sculpt on him in general is decent. The paint is okay. It's lacking for sure. The head and the glove and the hand probably get the most attention to detail, which is where you want it. His costume's a little bland and the blood is a little overly red, but the places where you're really going to focus on the character, I think work really well. And I'm definitely going to give this figure a high recommend. I'm sure he's probably near impossible to find anymore because the Cinema of Fear line was out so very long ago. But really a great incarnation of Freddy, and almost enriched by the fact that we haven't had anything like this in so long. Make sure you check out Outside the Box Reviews on Facebook. There'll be a link below. Also check out Outside the Box Reviews on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. And make sure you keep coming back all week long as we continue to look at more slasher-themed horror figures. And don't forget, we still have a week of Clive Barker and Michael Myers to follow here on Outside the Box Reviews all through the month of October.